Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It's great to see so many smiling faces out there. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to talk tonight about crossing disciplines and breaking down barriers. How my Jesuit education at Loyola relates to the work that I do today as a professor and what I've done over the last 2 decades. So a bit of background about me. I was in the class of 1995 at Loyola. At that time, we called it Loyola College, right? And I was in the Green and Gray Society. Since 1999, I've been a professor of computer and information sciences at Towson University. And the focus of my career has been on ensuring that people with disabilities have equal access to technology and digital content. And you see a picture on the right there. That's a doctoral student of mine, Abiodun Olalare. That's at commencement maybe in 2014. So I've been a professor for a number of years, and over the years, I've been asked to take part in litigation. I've been asked to go testify to the US Department of Justice, to the Maryland State Legislature. So I've had a lot of involvement over the years with policy and law, so much so that this year I took a leave of absence from my professorship at Towson University, right? And I went to the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm actually an LLM student at their law school for the year. So I found I needed to learn more to be the type of teacher, researcher, advocate that I wanted to be. I needed to learn more. And so I took the year off, and I'm studying law for the year. Bit of background, a bit of history of my time at Loyola. So these are the best part of the pictures from the 1990s. So on the left, you'll see a picture of Mark Broderick, of course, director of student activities for many years, right? And we're at commencement, 1995. On the right, of course, everyone knows who that is. He looks exactly the same. It's Father Brown. That's right. Let's give applause to Father Brown, who's in the audience tonight. That's actually at my green and gray induction ceremony in fall of 1994. You can see the plate. That's the green and gray plate, right? So there's Father Brown and I in 1994 at the green and gray induction. Such wonderful people, such great memories. Here's the Green and Gray Society from my class year. I saw a few people pointing. So Charlie Hebler is here, right here, and so he's in the photo on the right. He's all the way on the right. But here was my class year, the Green and Gray Society in 1995. And you know what's great? Half of these people I've actually seen face-to-face in the last year. How great is that? Yeah, it's really some wonderful, wonderful people. One of the things I remembered learning when I was at Loyola was from Joe Healy. And in the center of this picture, you see Joe Healy. He was director and dean of international programs and study abroad. And he also taught classes in world religion. And here's a picture at the International Festival, either 1993 or 1994. And I remember he taught, in the world religions class, he taught us that in Western religions, often it's common to view everything as either or. You are either this or you are that. He said, and in Eastern religions, it's actually more common to think of things as both and. You can be both X and Y. And the more I had been thinking about taking a year off and going to study law, I kept going back to that comment from Joe Healy. In fact, I even asked Father Brown a little bit about it. We had a discussion about this. Because really, I'm deeply interested in computer science and always have been. But I'm also interested in law. And that's why I'm studying law right now. Because working with people who are involved in law and advocacy and policy allows you to get things done. It allows you to make the change in the world that you want to see. And so often people will say, well, are you a computer scientist or are you a lawyer? I say, well, really, I'm passionate about both. I'm passionate about both computer science and law. That led me to wonder, what are other things where I might be kind of a both and, right? Where something you don't expect maybe that would go together, like computer science and law, you don't always expect they go together. Well, I'm a product of both Jesuit education and Jewish summer camps. There you go. So on the left there, you'll see the Alpha Sigma Nu induction with Father Brunette, who passed away a few years ago. Father Brunette, a wonderful, wonderful person. And on the right, you'll see my years as a summer camp counselor at Beth Tefillah camps. You don't often think of those things going together. But there's more. Can you be a non-Asian and dance in the South Asian fashion show at Loyola? I prove that you can. That was me. That was 1994, I believe, fall in 1994. That's a South Asian fashion show. That's me on the right. And it occurred to me that over time, I've kind of always been both and, right? I've always been involved in crossing disciplines, crossing things that you don't expect. And all the pieces were coming together as I put this presentation together, and I thought, oh, yeah, I see how this fits with this. And really, this has been the story of my life. And I've believed in this professionally. If you want to make a difference, you have to cross disciplines. And there's a reason why. If you think of the most important problems and the most interesting problems of our time, many of them lie at the intersection of 2, 3, or even 4 disciplines. Think about the majors that you hear about now. Bioinformatics, biomedical engineering. Think about how many of these cross 2 or 3 disciplines. If you want to make a difference in the world and you want to solve the problems of today, you need to cross disciplines. Right? If you want to study what's going on right now with healthcare, you need to not only have a background in medicine, in public health and nursing, you also need a background in public policy. You need a background in economics. And so solving the problems of the world now that we face, you really need to cross disciplines. You need to study different areas. And so my challenge to the students here is to go out and make sure you take courses in other areas and maybe double major. So I heard a story earlier today that Loyola faculty are thinking about requiring a minor for all students in a different area. I think that's a brilliant idea. So for the faculty who are here today, I think that's great. You should totally do that. It's a great idea because we want to graduate students who can cross disciplines and are comfortable with that and are cross-trained in a number of different fields. If you want to be men and women for others, you want to solve the problems of the world, that's really what you need. Anytime you interact with someone and you tell them, well, I speak English and I'm also fluent in French and German and Spanish, they say, that's fantastic. That you speak 3 languages, 4 languages, that's wonderful. Everyone understands that if you speak multiple languages, that means it allows you to be a translator, an interpreter, a connector. You get to connect people from different cultures and different countries. And everyone knows that's a good thing. But when you say that you cross 2 or 3 disciplines, people say, well, but which one are you? Are you a computer scientist? Are you a lawyer? Wait, are you interested in biology or are you interested in public policy? Which one are you? But having those different backgrounds allows you to make a difference in the world. Because when you cross 2, 3 disciplines, you become a connector. You become a translator. You become an interpreter to different fields and different populations and different professionals. And so it's really important that you do that. It's really important that you are able to go to both a law conference and a computer science conference and a sociology conference and a psychology conference. Learn from others and be able to connect all the pieces. The problems of our world today demand that of you, that you need to have that background. In my career, I've been very blessed to work across multiple disciplines. Obviously, I've been very influenced by lawyers over the years, and probably influenced by Father Brown, who taught my first law class in the year, but many years ago, who taught my first law class that I took. And over the years, I've had the opportunity to work with many great lawyers. So the picture you see on the right, Dan Goldstein, that's actually his retirement party last week. And I co-authored a textbook with him. He's a civil rights lawyer. And Eve Hill, also a civil rights lawyer, and at one point she was the head person at the US Department of Justice working on disability rights. And I've worked with the US Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. I've worked with Harvard Law School Professor Michael Stein. So I've worked with a lot of passionate, amazing civil rights lawyers. I've also worked with doctors, nurses, and dietitians. I've recently been working on a project at Mass General Hospital in Boston. When I was up there for the year as a fellow at the Radcliffe Institute for Advanced Study at Harvard, I actually did clinical observations in their Down syndrome clinic. And that led me to do computing projects with them. And recently, we've been working on creating nutritional apps for adults with Down syndrome to manage their health. So I've had the opportunity to work at a hospital on research with doctors, with dietitians. I've worked with librarians. I'm on the board of the Friends of the Maryland Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped. I've worked with ethnographers and psychologists. Why limit yourself? In academia, people often say, well, what's your favorite research method? And I say, whatever it'll take to get it done. Right? I use every research method. I'll work with anyone to solve the problems of the world. I'll work with any population. I'll work with any discipline. Because what I want to do is break down barriers. And to do that, I need to work with everyone. I want everyone on the team. I want to be working across all disciplines, practitioners, researchers, medical personnel, policymakers. I want to work with everyone because it takes that if I'm going to break down barriers. And that's what I care about with my cross-disciplinary work. It's breaking down barriers. My whole career has been about breaking down barriers in technology for people with disabilities. So you might ask, where did these projects start? Interestingly enough, it started when I was in Student Government Association at Loyola. So I was in Student Government Association serving under President Rob Kelly, which is fantastic, president of student government. I was in student government and actually serving with Charlie Heepler as well. I was in student government from 1993 to 1995. And at the time, believe it or not, especially for you students, that was before email accounts, right? That was before websites. That was before people commonly had cell phones. When they did, they had like a big brick, right? And so no cell phones, right? We didn't have web pages yet. And email accounts were very, I think computer science and information system majors could get on the digital VAX. So it was a long time ago in a technology galaxy far, far away. But at the time, there was a really strong voicemail system at Loyola. And resident students got voicemail boxes and information about campus events and club meetings and concerts, right? And weather closings. So all sent out via a voicemail system. But the problem was commuters didn't have access to this voicemail. And so you had a situation where commuter students were being marginalized. They didn't have access to all this event information. So they didn't come to campus events often. They didn't hear about a great concert or a great club meeting they would have loved to be a part of. Commuter students were being marginalized. And so when I was in student government, I worked with John McFadden, who at the time was director of Office of Technology Services on the campus. And we came up with a solution that we were going to provide voicemail boxes to commuter students so that they could get access to the same information. Now, at the time, though, we had the question, there weren't cell phones. How were people going to check their voicemail boxes when they were on campus? So we set up a series of sort of house phones that you could use to call anywhere in Loyola, and you could also use to check your voicemail, but you couldn't use to call out. And we put them all over campus. And one of them, I know at least, is still in place today. So that's what the house phones looked like. On the right, that's what the house phones looked like. They were placed all around the campus, so anytime you wanted to check your voicemail, you could. If you were a commuter student, you could call up faculty. You could leave messages for your residential student friends. Because the goal was to integrate, as much as possible, the commuter students and the resident students. Now, here's actually an article from the Greyhound in 1994, from the student newspaper. The title is Commuter Phone Mail Connects with Early Success. So October 1994. And if you read the article, what's great is that there are quotes from John McFadden. And John McFadden said, "This system now allows commuters to be a part of the campus as equal partners with the residents." And I said, "Commuters can now be included on club lists and receive the same messages that resident students do." Looking back, I was talking about equal access to information as an undergraduate student in student government in 1994. You can see the connection between my work in student government and what I do now and what I've been doing my whole career. Take this phrase, using a technology to ensure that a marginalized population has equal access to information and is not being excluded from society. That applies to both my work in student government in the 1990s, and it applies to the work I've been doing my whole career. In 1993 to 95, I was using a technology, voicemail boxes, to ensure that a marginalized population, commuter students, had equal access to information and was not being excluded from campus events. Now, if you replace a few words there, that's what I've been doing my whole career. I've been using technology, such as accessible websites, operating systems, and accessible applications to ensure that a marginalized population, people with disabilities, we want to make sure that they are not marginalized. We want to make sure that they have equal access to information, because if you don't have equal access to information, if you don't have equal access to all these things I'm talking about, websites, technologies, operating systems, applications, if you don't have equal access, you're excluded from employment, from commerce, and from education. You see the link between what I was doing in student government and my entire career. My first project on using technology to ensure equal access for everyone was when I was a student here at Loyola in student government. I want to tell you a little bit about my career now, what I'm most passionate about now. Here's a picture from one of my classes at Towson University. I've been there as a professor for 18 years, for the last 14 years as director of the undergraduate program in information systems. Primarily, I teach classes in human-computer interaction. I've also taught classes in web design, systems analysis and design. And every year, I teach one section of a great class that's all about technology design for blind users. And what I do is I have students go out to agencies and organizations in the Baltimore area, such as the International Braille and Technology Center at the National Federation of the Blind. Did you know that in Baltimore, it's the national headquarters of the National Federation of the Blind? They have a technology center that has one of every technology in the world for people who are blind. There's no place else like that anywhere. One of every technology. Everything from your standard technologies like screen readers to accessible voting machines, high-speed Braille printers, 3D printers. And it's a great class. Students also go to the Maryland Library for the Blind. They go to Blind Industries and Services of Maryland. And it's all about making sure that when you design technology, it is fully accessible. Now, my research over the past 2 decades has primarily focused on blind users. And I've also done some work involving people with Down syndrome. And my work has always focused on how do we do strong empirical research that can impact the world? How do we make sure that people with disabilities have equal access? Do we need new tools? We've built some tools. Do we need new processes? We've tested out some new processes. Do we need to document best practices? We've done that. My research and teaching and my advocacy has always been done in partnership with the community to try and make the world more inclusive. Here are 3 recent books of mine. The one on the left is Ensuring Digital Accessibility Through Process and Policy. That was co-authored with Dan Goldstein, civil rights lawyer, and Ann Taylor, who is now an accessibility lead at Microsoft. My book on the right, co-edited with Michael Stein, professor at Harvard Law School. And the book in the middle, Research Methods in Human-Computer Interaction, that's a standard textbook that's used throughout the world for graduate students doing research. It's a very popular textbook. And what's interesting is that the 3 authors there, it's myself, Heidi Feng, and Harry Hockheiser, all really started out in the same place, studying computer science and information systems. And we've taken 3 different paths. I'm now connecting my HCI work with law. Harry is now connecting his human-computer interaction work with medicine. He's a professor of biomedical informatics. Heidi has been working on apps for independence. And so you need to be trained across multiple disciplines because your careers are going to go in different directions. You never know where you're going to wind up. We started in the same place in terms of our background, our Ph.D. training. And so you need to be educated and comfortable across disciplines, because you never know where your work is going to lead, what opportunities you're going to have to make the world a better place. So you've got two pictures here. The one on the left is a picture of me at the White House Disability and Inclusive Technology Summit. It was at the White House last year. A few weeks later, it's another picture on the right that's at the 10th anniversary of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And when you first think computer scientist, you don't think White House, United Nations, human rights treaties. But you never know where the opportunities come to use your knowledge for good in the world, to make a difference. The picture here is of a bill signing in Annapolis. There's Governor Martin O'Malley in the middle. And that was a bill. I actually had testified on behalf of the bill, and I was actually involved with the writing of the bill, right? It was to make it so that Maryland universities teach more content about technology access for people with disabilities. And I've testified on behalf of many bills over the years. This was the first one that ever got signed into law. It's very exciting. Here's one of the more unique presentations. I was going to a conference in Seoul, South Korea, and I received an invitation to come speak to and give a presentation at the Korean Disability Lawyers Association. It's a group of lawyers in Seoul, South Korea, who work on disability rights law. And they wanted to know more about technology access. They wanted to know more about US laws. What a fantastic time we had chatting. It was such an interesting experience. So you never know where you will have the opportunity to use your knowledge, your education, for social change in the world. Now you might say, well, this sounds great. How do I get there? You've taken all these interesting paths. How do you get there? For the students, I would suggest you need to find great mentors and teachers, people who you trust, people who you talk with, because they will help challenge your assumptions. And can I tell you, even as someone in my 40s, I still have mentors and I talk to them regularly and I seek advice. We all need mentors. At any age, at any stage of our life, we need people we trust, people who can listen to what we have to say and then say, maybe we could think of that a little bit differently. They can change your point of view. They can point you in new directions. They can challenge your assumptions, open you up to new ways of thinking. They can tell you when you're not living up to your potential. They can tell you when you're doing a great job, but I see there's an opportunity here for you to do something greater. I see an opportunity for you. I see a new direction. I see a way that you can be truest to yourself. We all need mentors. We need them on an ongoing basis. Not once in a while. You need to find great mentors, trust them, talk with them, chat with them about how your career is going, what you're thinking about. And I want to tell you a story of one conversation that changed my life, and it happened here at Loyola. Because one conversation can change your life. One conversation with the right mentor. Here's a picture from 1993 of Meg Richards on the left. She was actually an adjunct professor of management information systems here at Loyola. And at the time, I was taking BA 251, the Introduction to Information Systems class. Anyone here taking that class? Any students in BA 251? Got a few people here taking it. There you go. So in this class, I was talking with the professor, Richards, and I was telling her, I'm trying to figure out what major, my first major wasn't a good fit. I'm trying to figure out what it is that I want to do. And I said, I always kind of liked computing. Computing was interesting. And she said, so Jonathan, she said, there is this great research lab at the University of Maryland. It's called the Human-Computer Interaction Lab. First time I'd ever heard the phrase human-computer interaction before was out of the mouth of Meg Richards. I'd never heard of it before. She said, Jonathan, there is this great research lab. They have an open house in a few weeks. I'm going down there. You should come with me. I said, okay, sure, that sounds interesting. I went down, and this is a picture, by the way, of me at the open house. Interestingly enough, the founder of the field of human-computer interaction, loves taking pictures, and he found a picture of me my first day in human-computer interaction. I went down to the human-computer interaction lab, the open house, and the person who founded the field of human-computer interaction, one of my mentors, now Ben Schneiderman, and he was talking all about how technology can be used for good. We're going to work on understanding what users need so that we can help people. We can improve the quality of life. We can make it so that there's better cross-cultural interaction. We can make it so healthcare quality is improved. He was going on and on about how technology can be used to improve the quality of life. And I said, aha, that's what I want to do. I want to use technology to improve the quality of life. So I came in the next Monday, I changed majors, and I've been doing human-computer interaction ever since. And years later, he said, I think I found a picture of you. And there it is, a picture. My first day in human-computer interaction, 1993. So one conversation really can change your life. With the right mentor, be open about what you're interested in, what your fears are, what you'd like to accomplish in the world. Because one conversation, and it still happens to me now, even 20 years later, one conversation with the right person can make an amazing difference. I want to challenge you as students to be the one to make a difference. You know, right now there's a lot of cynicism in this world about you really can't make a change. Things are fixed. That's not true. If someone tells you you can't make a change in society, don't believe them. You can make a change in society. You can do it. You can make things happen. I'll tell you a few stories from my own professional life. So earlier this year, in my human-computer interaction class at Towson University, I had 3 veterans who were students in my class who pointed out to me and said, you know, Dr. Lazar, we noticed that on the Veterans Administration, or Department of Veterans Affairs website, the crisis hotline phone number is located below the fold. It's not on the screen. It's all the way at the bottom. It's really hard to find. They said, a lot of veterans are committing suicide. Why wouldn't they want to make the crisis phone number in a place that's really easy to spot? I said, that's an excellent point. Collect some data on this. So they collected some data with veterans, and they found, indeed, veterans couldn't find the phone number. So we put together a report with the data that we collected. Remember, if you want to make a difference in the world, you need data. We put together a report. I sent the report to various administrators. I asked a lot of friends of mine, who do you know at the VA? Who do you know? Great, can you get me an email address? I asked a lot of people. We found 4 or 5 administrators that we had access to. I sent them the report, said, please let me know if you have any questions. I really think this is an important change. 2 months later, guess what? The phone number is now prominently displayed on the homepage. We don't have proof that it was only because of our work, but we know we sent the report. We know it was read by a number of administrators, and I heard some informal feedback that it had an influence. You can make a change. Be the one. Make a difference. A few years ago, I was being interviewed on National Public Radio, and I was talking about how ready.gov, which is the emergency preparedness website, ready.gov was not accessible for blind people. Now think about it. That's life and death. You need to have information about hurricanes and flood preparedness, and it wasn't accessible. And I called them out on NPR. Right? Your website's not accessible. This is life or death. 2 months later, they had made the change and made their homepage accessible. In 2009, I collected data with my students about discriminatory pricing. So anytime you go to an airline website, and many websites says lower fares, right? The lowest fares are available on our website. If you call up the airline, what does it say? It says, lower fares may be available on our website. Please go to www. Right? But what happens if the website is not accessible? Does that mean if you have a disability, the website's not accessible to you, they didn't design it with people with disabilities in mind, that you call up the airline and you get charged a higher price? Well, that's against the law. You can't charge someone more because they have a disability. So we collected data on that, where we checked out what the prices were on flights on the website, versus at that same moment, if you called, said you were blind, the website was inaccessible, how much do they charge you? On average, they charged you 30 to 40% higher fares. When you include the call center fee, 30 to 40%. So we collected this data, we published it, and then a few years later, when the Department of Transportation had a regulatory process, I submitted the report. And I said, this should help drive your regulatory process. The final regulations came out. They cited our research and said, specifically, Dr. Lazar and his students found that, and for that reason, we are going to put in these higher requirements. You can make a change. Working across disciplines, working in groups, collecting data, you have the power to make a change in society. Always think about the implications of your work, the implications of what you do for other populations, other disciplines, and for society. People often think of, well, I just need to do this project, and here's the one outcome. I'm only targeting it towards the following people. One of my mentors suggested at the end of every research paper I wrote, I should have 4 different categories. Implications for researchers, implications for policymakers, right? Implications for designers, implications for managers, and you could see this could go on. What's the implication of your work? What does it mean for all these other populations? Don't limit yourself. Think of it in a broader view. What does your work mean for others? So anytime someone tells you you can't make a change in society, don't listen to them. Ignore them. Go find different mentors. Find mentors who will challenge you, who will believe in you, who will see that you have the power to make a major difference. I want you, as students, to cross disciplines so that you can break down barriers. And for the faculty who are here, I want you to teach students to be cross-disciplinary so that they can break down barriers. Those two go hand in hand. If you want to break down barriers, you need to be trained across multiple disciplines and maybe speak a few languages too, right? The more the merrier. To make a difference in the world, you have to be comfortable in a lot of different settings and a lot of different types of groups of people. You can do that. You're going to be Loyola graduates. You can do that. One of my mentors, again, Ben Schneiderman, presented at the Human-Computer Interaction Conference this year a challenge to our community: to be bold, to be interactive, and to be generous. Let's talk about each one of those. First, be bold. Think of radically changing the approach. Think of how you can flip the assumptions on their head. New approaches. Don't think small, think big. You're much better off thinking big and working towards getting there than thinking small. Oh, here's an easy goal. I'll work towards that. No, think big. Figure out what the steps are you need in between point A and point B, but think big. Think big projects, big changes, big impact. Be interactive. The more people you can talk with, the better. Always. You never know when one conversation will be that conversation that's a life changer. I'm always very open and immediately tell people, here's what I do. You know, I work on technology for people with disabilities. Do you know how many times someone says, oh, I'd really love to talk to you because I have a relative, name of their relative, who has a disability or is losing their vision, or I don't know anything about that. Can you help me? You never know when you're going to be someone else's puzzle piece. They need some help, and you're there at that moment to help them. Maybe they are there in that moment to help you. Maybe you're there to make some type of connection that'll help someone else. But talk with as many people as possible across disciplines, in different fields, different ages, different ethnicities. Talk to everyone. Growing up, my Aunt Phyllis, my great dear departed Aunt Phyllis, always told me, Jonathan, you should talk to strangers. It's good for you. Don't listen to your parents. It's good for you. Talking to strangers is good. Because the more people you talk with, Turns out they're going to be your friends. They're going to be your colleagues. You may make some important connection. So important connection that will change the world. Look, one conversation with Meg Richards introduced me to human-computer interaction. And I've seen that happen again and again and again in my life. So be interactive. Talk with people as much as possible. And when I say talk with them, I don't mean text message them or send them a short email or Facebook message them. Get to know them. Meet them for coffee. Talk at a conference. Really deeply interact with them. Connect with them. Be interactive. And then be generous. Be generous with your time. Be generous with your spirit. Share with others what you're doing. You know, if you look at some research labs, if you look at some universities, they tell you, we're not going to tell everyone what we're doing. We're going to keep it secret. No, be open about what you're doing. Share with others. Any presentation that you're asked to give, say yes. Doesn't make a difference how big, how small. Go out there and spread your message to the world about what you're passionate about. Be generous with your time. Ask people as you're working on writing papers, as you're working on doing design projects. Ask people for feedback. And also be generous about giving them feedback. Constructive, positive feedback. Not criticism, constructive feedback. The more you can share what you're doing with others, the more feedback you get, the better your final product will be. Whatever it is, a design project, an engineering project, an article you're writing for your English class, get feedback. People can give you some different ideas. They can give you different ways to view it, right? Share with others. Be open. That's what I mean by be generous. Now, let's think about this for a minute. Be bold, be interactive, and be generous. B-I-G. Think big. Don't be shy. The world doesn't need people who go inward and say, I'm not going to engage with the world. Right now, we need people who are bold and interactive and generous to go out there and make the world a better place, to go out there and make the world more inclusive, to improve the quality of life. So I challenge you today, be bold, be interactive, be generous, be the one. Thank you very much.